The narrative of the 20th century, as we know it, culminates in the defeat of the Axis powers. But history is not a predetermined script. It is a tapestry woven from countless threads of decision, chance, and circumstance. Pull one critical thread, change one pivotal outcome, and the entire pattern shifts irrevocably. Let us trace the path of one such alternate thread, beginning in the skies over Britain in 1940, and follow its dark trajectory into the 21st century. Operation Sea Lion and the Fall of Britain, 1940-1941. The Battle of Britain remains the crucial divergence point. In our timeline, the RAF's resilience, aided by radar and fighting spirit, denied Germany the air superiority needed for invasion. In this alternate sequence, a confluence of factors tilts the balance. Imagine a series of devastatingly accurate Luftwaffe raids, perhaps guided by unexpectedly precise intelligence or benefiting from a temporary breakdown in RAF command coordination due to targeted attacks on key sector airfields and communication nodes. Add to this several days of exceptionally poor weather-grounding German bombers, followed by a sudden, prolonged spell of clear skies perfectly timed for maximum offensive operations just as RAF replacements falter. The result is a faster, more crippling degradation of RAF fighter command in the critical southeast sector. Luftwaffe losses remain heavy, but British losses, especially of experienced pilots and functional airfields, become unsustainable by mid-September 1940. Göring, sensing the momentum shift, successfully convinces Hitler that a window of opportunity, however risky, has opened. Reluctantly, Hitler authorizes Operation Sea Lion. The invasion begins in late September. German naval assets, including commandeered barges and Kriegsmarine warships providing escort, launch from French ports under the umbrella of tenuous German air superiority over the immediate channel crossing and landing zones. The Royal Navy intercepts aggressively, inflicting significant casualties on the vulnerable transport fleet, but suffers its own losses to Luftwaffe bombers and E-boats darting from coastal bases. Crucially, enough German troops, including paratroopers seizing inland objectives and initial waves of infantry, establish beachheads in Kent and Sussex. The land battle is ferocious. British Army units, including Commonwealth reinforcements, rushed south, and the mobilized Home Guard fight with tenacity. Towns like Dover, Folkestone, and Brighton become fierce battlegrounds. However, the Germans managed to land panzer divisions through the captured port facilities, albeit slowly and under harassment. These armored spearheads, supported by Luftwaffe close air support that the depleted RAF cannot consistently challenge over the front lines, begin to break through British defenses. Logistical nightmares plague the German supply lines across the Channel, making the advance slower and more difficult than anticipated. Yet, the strategic reality is grim for Britain. German forces advance methodically, aiming to encircle London from the south and west. Heavy fighting occurs along defensive lines, like the GHQ line, but breakthroughs are achieved at high cost. By early 1941, German artillery is within range of London, which is subjected to continuous tactical bombing alongside the ongoing strategic blitz. Facing military encirclement of the capital, unsustainable casualties, and the severing of vital supply lines, the British political situation reaches a crisis point. Churchill's faction, advocating continued resistance, loses ground to those arguing that further struggle is futile and risks utter annihilation. Under immense pressure, Churchill is forced to resign. A caretaker government is formed, possibly led by figures like Lord Halifax, tasked with negotiating an armistice. The armistice terms, signed in the spring of 1941, are devastating. Britain must surrender a significant portion of its fleet, allow German occupation of southern England and key ports, demobilize its armed forces, and install a government acceptable to Berlin, effectively a collaborationist regime, perhaps nominally led by Oswald Mosley or other sympathetic figures, but under the absolute control of a German military governor. King George VI, the royal family, and key elements of the legitimate government escape to Canada, forming a government in exile. But their ability to influence events in Europe is drastically curtailed. Britain, the bastion of resistance, is neutralized. Consolidating the West, turning east, 1941-1944. In 1941, the fall of Britain sends shockwaves across the globe. Germany consolidates its grip on the island, exploiting it for industrial resources and forced labor. Though sabotage and passive resistance hinder productivity, German garrisons ruthlessly suppress opposition, while Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland linger under the influence of a collaborationist regime, heavily monitored by Nazi authorities. With the Western Front secured, Hitler turns eastward. Operation Barbarossa, launched in June 1941, is far more powerful than in our history, bolstered by divisions, Luftwaffe aircraft, and equipment previously tied down in Britain. The Soviet Union fights desperately, suffering and inflicting massive casualties. But the enhanced German offensive proves decisive. Army Group Center captures Moscow by late autumn 1941, despite fierce counterattacks. Army Group North encircles and takes Leningrad after a horrific siege, and Army Group South advances deep into the Caucasus oil fields. By 1943, Germany occupies European Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. The Soviet government retreats beyond the Urals, its ability to wage conventional war shattered, leaving remnants of the Red Army and partisans to fight a bloody defensive struggle against German occupation forces and the brutal SS Einsatzgruppen. The horrors of General Plan Ost unfold as vast areas are marked for German colonization, Lebensraum, with Slavic populations facing dispossession, enslavement, starvation, and mass murder, while the Holocaust accelerates across conquered territories with terrifying efficiency. Mediterranean and global realignments. Britain's defeat creates a domino effect in the Mediterranean. Malta, cut off from British resupply, likely falls to Axis air and sea power. Gibraltar remains a potential choke point. But Spain under Franco, witnessing Axis triumph, might join formally or grant basing rights, allowing Germany to control the Mediterranean entrance. Without Britain's Eighth Army in Egypt, Rommel's German and Italian forces could secure North Africa, capture the Suez Canal, and threaten Middle East oil fields, possibly linking with troops advancing through the Caucasus. Turkey might be pressured into joining the Axis or allowing passage, while Italy under Mussolini, though secondary, basks in the reflected glory of German victory, strengthening his regime. The American Strategic Dilemma and the Pacific War, 1941-1947. After Pearl Harbor, in December 1941, facing a dire strategic challenge in Europe. Without Britain as a staging ground, an amphibious invasion of a German-dominated fortress Europe from Norway to the Pyrenees and deep into Russia is deemed militarily unfeasible or suicidal, with the U.S. Navy vulnerable to the land-based Luftwaffe and Kriegsmarine. Roosevelt and military leadership pivot, focusing overwhelming resources on defeating Japan while maintaining a defensive posture in the Atlantic to contain German influence. The Germany First strategy is abandoned. The Pacific War intensifies as American resources are undivided, with the island-hopping campaign, battles like Midway, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa proceeding with full industrial might. The Manhattan Project advances with urgency, driven by fears of Nazi Germany capturing Soviet nuclear research or developing its own atomic weapons through scientists like Heisenberg. The U.S. successfully deploys atomic bombs against Japan, forcing surrender around 1946-1947, similar to our timeline. The post-war world, a nuclear Cold War, late 1940s onwards. The world map is redrawn. The Greater German Reich dominates Europe, annexing vast territories and controlling others through puppet regimes and military occupation. Berlin, possibly reconstructed as Germania under Albert Speer's plans, stands as the capital of a totalitarian empire. The United States emerges as the leader of the free world, encompassing the Americas, liberated Pacific nations, Australia, New Zealand, and exiled European governments based in Canada or parts of Britain if they remain under influence. A tense bipolar standoff begins as Germany, leveraging captured resources and scientific talent, pursues nuclear weapons and advanced rocketry, likely achieving atomic capability by the late 1940s or early 1950s. This Cold War pits American democracy against Nazi fascism, marked by nuclear brinkmanship with vast arsenals and delivery systems like ICBMs. Proxy wars erupt during decolonization in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, fueled by competing ideologies and arms shipments, with South America also a battleground. A space race focuses on military applications, surveillance satellites, and orbital weapons, while technology diverges, with the Reich developing state-controlled networks for surveillance and the US balancing military and consumer innovation. Within the Reich, Nazi ideology, racial purity laws, and SS dominance persist, exploiting occupied territories for the German Corps' benefit, though succession crises loom as original leaders age. The US-led bloc unites against Nazism, though civil liberties face pressure under national security concerns. The world of 2025 alternate. 80 years after hostilities end, the world remains locked in a grim stalemate. The Greater German Reich controls Europe as an oppressive, technologically advanced empire built on racial ideology and terror, with generations knowing only subjugation. Resistance persists in whispers, overwhelmed by state power. The United States leads the free world, powerful yet burdened by perpetual confrontation. Global politics revolve around this tense divide, with travel and communication heavily restricted and the nuclear war threat ever present, managed only by deterrence. History diverged at the English Channel in 1940, replacing 1945's victory bells with the enduring shadow of the swastika, creating a darker, more dangerous 21st century where the struggle for freedom continues against a formidable adversary. If this dark what if blew your mind, don't stop here. Like this video to show your support, subscribe to What If Wave for more insane alternatives, and share this with your crew to keep the conversation going. What's the next what if you want us to explore? Drop your ideas, and let's keep riding these waves of history together. See you in the next one.